Hello and welcome to SCI Guys, the show where we talk about the crazy, weird, and wonderful stories from the science world. I'm Corey, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, the literal Luke Cutforth.
Yes, I'm literally here.
This week we're talking about fearful feelings, but first we have a wee review.
The feedback that I crave.
This one is from Apple Podcasts, Luke. It's 5 stars. It says Ripper Podcast. Can you guess where it's from?
Oh, it's Australia.
Yeah. My name's Thomas. I live in the Gold Coast, Australia, and I listen to your podcast for hours every day. Thanks for making such an interesting podcast. Luke is my favorite. Oh,
nice. Thanks so much. What? Carry on.
That's it.
Luke is my favorite.
Yeah, that's how it ends. Very, very cruel, horrible ending, I think.
I think that's lovely.
Tragic, one could say. Anyway, I've got a question for you, Luke, and anyone who's watching and listening at home. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, obviously you know where to answer this question down in the comments. If you're on Spotify, go wherever Spotify tells you to go. We don't know where that is because they won't tell us. We have no idea. But if you're on Apple or anywhere else, here's what you do. Just get stressed. Just as stressed as possible. Do every single stressful thing. Don't say no. Just say yes to every opportunity. And then, honestly, you'll probably make it in the news, which neither of us will see, because we don't know where to find the news. We don't know where that is. But what will happen is we'll feel you. We'll feel your stress. Your anxiety will exude itself to us through the ether. And we'll probably be able to figure out your answer from that. The question, Luke, is do you have anxiety?
I have had anxiety and sometimes still have anxiety.
I think the answer to that question is yes.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, so next question, Luke. Obviously, as we're getting started in this episode, you know the episode is about generalized anxiety disorder. Generalized anxiety disorder. What is generalized anxiety disorder? Generalized anxiety disorder?
Generalized anxiety disorder. We're saluting for the audio listeners because it's generalized anxiety disorder.
To be clear, we're not saluting for the audio listeners. We're saluting a great hero. Generalized anxiety disorder. Generalized anxiety disorder.
I actually was saluting the listeners. Audio listeners. Okay, so generalized anxiety disorder. I'm going to say this is a mental health condition characterized by hypervigilance, worrying that something's going to go wrong, and that's it. This is why I don't write the DSM-5.
Yeah, it just sounds like being normal, though, isn't it? That just sounds like a normal human experience.
That's because all your friends have anxiety.
No. The world is scary and terrible. Tell me that's not true.
Corey reading over the diagnostic criteria for ADHD. But this is just people. This is all the people I know.
This is normal. We diagnosing people with normal now?
This is the wokey lefties gone mad.
No, honestly, before we get into anxiety, that does remind me of something that I see so often. So on TikTok, there are autistic people. There are autistic people pretty much everywhere, but there are also autistic people on TikTok. And sometimes they'll talk about their sort of diagnosis and the sort of what is it? The diagnostic sort of interview, I guess, is how you could describe it.
The interrogation.
Well, I mean, kind of, I suppose, if the crime was being autistic, which isn't a crime yet. Anyways, I don't want it to be. That's not a threat from me.
Okay.
It's just a window into a potential future. One that I would not want to be a part of. Anyways, Luke. Not in that way, Luke. I just wouldn't want to contribute to that world. Why are you giving me such looks that give me so much
Are you anxious?
anxiety? Anyway, no, I've seen autistic people on TikTok talk about the questions they were asked and the answers that they gave in their interview, let's say, right? And they're like, my answer was perfectly reasonable. It was perfectly normal. Like, how can they tell that I'm autistic from this? And doesn't everyone just respond in this way to that question? And I'm sat there reading it like, no.
Oh, really?
No. That's like, I understand what they meant by that question. And like, it is very reminiscent of a lot of the autistic people I know to respond in that particular.
Sure.
So, for example, one of the things that was on this was, one of the sort of quotes about this, the person that was being sort of diagnosed was, they made little eye contact and didn't make much small talk and weren't like overtly very friendly throughout the process. And they were like, yeah, because it's like a diagnosis thing. I didn't realize, when I was doing this quiz, this test, that I had to be like nice and friendly and like ask questions and smile and stuff. Like I was just doing my thing. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that if you have to think about doing that stuff, then that's probably an indication of autism. Do you know
Because
what I
you're
mean?
masking, yeah.
Okay, so I just remembered one wherein they were talking about like the sort of they were describing them how they were blunt, and they didn't necessarily do socially appropriate things at certain points. The example being that they recalled saying to a friend, whose breath smelled, "Your breath smells. I don't want to stand near you." And they were like, "Yeah, of course. I mean, if my breath smelled, I'd want someone to tell me." And I'm just sat there reading it like, yeah, but the point is that like you said it in a way that is rude,
Yeah.
which is fine. Like, there's no judgment here, but like it's interesting having a window in when you're very much tied to your own perspective, right? Having a window into someone else's perspective and seeing the things that they do and they think, and you're like, oh yeah, this is very indicative of someone who's autistic, and they're like, but this is just normal. Don't we all do this? Don't we all understand this the same way? It's like, well, no.
That's super interesting. Although I've seen the opposite. So we're on an anxiety episode, but I saw the opposite on Twitter that was like people complaining about the sort of diagnostic sort of interview with autism in the NHS, where it's like, do you want to hang out with your friends? And like, if you're somebody who suspects they have autism and you're pretty sure you have autism, so you'd like a diagnosis. Not that you want to be autistic necessarily, but you just would like to be confirmed that your suspicion is correct.
Mm-hmm.
They want you to sort of respond like, no, I am a little hermit. I want to just hang around my house all day and do autistic things. But if like that was the complaint anyway, was that people are saying like, I actually do have friends and I do have a social life, but you want me to say, I just love doing autistic things all day.
I think like there are some problems with some of the testing things, but then I think what people forget as well is that you're not expected to answer sort of in the affirmative with all
everything
of the questions.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like there are sort of tests that look more for high masking autistic individuals and things like that. And another thing I would say as well is just a quick litmus test, right? If you're doing an autism quiz, let's call it an autism quiz, a questionnaire to determine whether you have autism or not, a diagnostic questionnaire, and you're sitting there like quibbling over the wording of the questions, autistic, you're probably autistic. That's most people who aren't autistic wouldn't be sitting and like picking apart the phrasing of the questions to ensure they get it specifically exactly right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of the ones where it's like they don't even need to do the test at that point. Just give them the test, ignore the results, and see whether the test annoys them or not. Like that. I mean, in my experience, that's almost 100% success rate. But back to anxiety, for the first time, really.
Not for me.
So anxiety is a normal part of life, Luke.
Mm-hmm.
So, anxiety, does it exist? Generalized anxiety disorder, does it exist?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anxiety is a normal part of life.
Yeah.
Anxiety disorder is when anxiety is like a lot,
Mm-hmm.
gets in the way of your life,
Mm-hmm.
frequent, long term, not necessarily caused by a specific thing, etc.
Yeah, much like a girlfriend, frequent, long term, gets in the way of your. Been watching a lot of cis het men do comedy, Luke.
Ah.
Yeah, the old ball and chain.
Oh, good. I can't wait to watch some of that.
We hate the loves of our lives, don't we?
Oh, mother-in-laws and something.
Oh God, aren't mothers-in-law terrible? No, they're quite nice.
I really like my mother-in-law.
Yeah, me too.
You
Yeah.
met her the other day. She's lovely.
So, normal part of life, Luke. But when you worry too much, as you're saying, or when you worry about things that aren't all that worrying, that could be a sign of anxiety disorder.
Wow, gaslighting. Worrying about things that aren't all that worrying.
Well, I mean, health, money, family problems, the NHS says that these are normal things to worry about.
Ah.
But, what an abnormal thing to worry about would be, for
example,
door handles.
I'm anxious about locking my doors and then going and checking them before I go to bed, even though I know I've locked them.
Mm-hmm.
I've never once been burgled. It's never happened. My parents once had like a laptop stolen from the back door because they left the back door unlocked. But other than that, I've never once had any problem with leaving the doors unlocked. And yet, every night I lie down, I'm about to go to sleep, and I go to my wife, did you check the doors? To the point where she now checks the doors, even though she doesn't, just so that she can tell me I've checked the doors.
They're locked. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's not checking the doors.
Oh, no, I trust her. She better be. Imagine if she was lying. Oh, God. Oh, now I've got anxiety. Thanks, Corey.
You're welcome. just to demonstrate for the episode. So it's a normal part of life, but it's also a symptom of a number of conditions. Panic disorder, phobias. Can you name a phobia?
Iraq.
Yeah.
Arachna.
Iraq sounds like...
Iraq? Oh, God. Arachna.
Yeah, I was like, wait, why does it feel like you're being racist? Oh, right, I see.
Sorry, that was just what Tony Blair had. And George Bush.
Ooh, so PTSD,
Yeah.
anxiety is also a common symptom of that. And you won't believe this, look. This is a shocker. Social anxiety disorder.
That's about anxiety?
Yeah, anxiety is a pretty common symptom amongst that.
Mad.
There's also another disorder that we've mentioned several times at this point, generalized anxiety disorder. That is not any of the previous ones we've mentioned. That's where it's just anxiety about anything, about nothing really. So all of these other disorders, right? You can kind of delineate them based on what they're about. They're all kind of about something. I mean, panic disorder isn't so much about something, but it's called panic disorder because of the sort of panic attacks that come with it. Phobias are like, you have anxiety around a specific thing. If you're agoraphobic, you're not necessarily going to have anxiety about a spider because you're not arachnophobic. Whereas someone with, anxiety, from here on out, by the way, if we say anxiety, we probably mean generalized anxiety disorder. Use your noggin, figure it out. But people who have sort of general anxiety are just stressed about everything or nothing in particular. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Does it also mean that they're like more likely to have be anxious about things in general? Like if you took like a normal average person, somebody with anxiety would just find possibly everything more stressful, or possibly a set of circumstances more stressful than the normal. Quotes.
Yeah. Basically, what you're saying is just having more anxiety in your life. So yeah, a normal situation could be more stressful for someone with anxiety. But then I guess it depends on the person. Do you know what I mean? Ultimately, the takeaway from this is that if you are having anxiety to the point where it impacts your life, just general, and it's not about a specific thing, then that would probably fall under general anxiety rather than any of the more specific causes of anxiety. I mean, personally, for me, I get mad body anxiety sometimes. Body anxiety is what I call it when my head's not going nuts, but my body is like, hey, buddy,
yeah,
a tiger or something's about to eat you. I don't know. But all I do know is that you should be so on edge. You should be so tense that you could shatter into a million pieces if hit. That's what I think as your body. I'm just telling you, So, it doesn't necessarily need to be like anxiety in your head, like stressful thoughts. You can also experience just physical symptoms of anxiety. And again, yeah, look, it's not the same as just having normal anxiety, as in, oh no, I don't know if I'll be able to afford life. That's a normal thing to be anxious about. So you could be in a, if that's something that's come up momentarily for you and you're stressed about it, yeah, that's normal. In the same sense that, we'll probably talk about this in future. In fact, we definitely will talk about this in future. Depression. If you're feeling sad for a few days, you're not necessarily depressed. You could just be sad.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to mention like the anxiety. Obviously, anxiety is so linked to this bad thing, but anxiety is a perfectly natural response to your brain. If you're coming up against a road, something in your central nervous system goes, you need to pay a bit more attention than you normally do.
Because a cop might see you coming on a road and arrest you.
What?
Is that not what you said? Coming up on a road?
No. If you're walking up to a road...
Ah, yes.
Okay, God, that was a tangent and a half. You need to be like, oh, there are greater amount of threats than when I was walking somewhere else or when I was in my house. And then, so then anxiety would then be like, that natural response maybe to coming up to a road, walking up to a road, is like 10 times. Like, okay, this is way more serious than, like, you're taking this way more seriously than it actually is in reality.
Yeah, the underlying sort of experience is beneficial in some circumstances, absolutely. But yeah, so generalized anxiety disorder, feeling anxious about lots of things or about nothing in particular, basically just not about one specific thing, because that would be a specific sort of anxiety disorder. You'd feel anxious most of the time. That's the main thing, and a lot of people, I think this is from the NHS, a lot of people struggle to remember when they last did not feel anxious or felt relaxed. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, they're underdiagnosed and undertreated, and they can often lead to a severe depression and substance abuse if left untreated. Good, right?
Self-medication.
Yeah, that's what anxiety and depression are like best mates. They always come hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, that's when I had my treatment for depression, they also treated anxiety. I was a little bit anxious. But it was like the same treatment. They were like, okay, we're going to do stuff over here on your good moody brain side, and then do stuff over here on your scared side.
Yeah. What treatment was that you had?
That was transcranial magnetic stimulation. They zapped my brain with an electromagnet for 30 days.
Interesting.
Not 30 full days. Half an hour for 30 days.
Strapped to a chair
Good
for
God.
a month.
I would not. It's not a very nice experience. It's fine for half an hour. I wouldn't want 30 days of that. Feels like someone's like knocking on your head.
Really?
Yeah, it's like if I just got my knuckles and went bang, 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 bang for like 10 minutes.
You can do
30
that
minutes.
so easily. You hit your head. I heard the knock from over here.
Yeah, I can also do my teeth.
Yeah, I don't like when you do your teeth.
Sorry.
Oh, God. Don't like when you do your skull either.
I'm just a hard man.
Okay. I think I figured out why you don't remember anything from this podcast.
I'm just trying to do
knocking it
more
out.
TMS on myself every day. I'm just like, come on, just need a bit more depression treatment. Woo!
So anxiety exists in around 1 in 4 kids at some point between 13 to 18 years. So if you're a kid, you're probably going to be anxious in your teens. Well, you've got a 1 in 4 chance of being anxious in your teens, which, that's pretty good. Being a teenager is very stressful, insofar as you get stressed about things that are actually, with hindsight, really not that stressful at all.
Yeah, I'm amazed it's only 1 in 4.
Right, yeah.
That's 3 in 4 kids don't get anxiety, like long-term anxiety in their teenage years.
Good for them.
I wonder what that life was like. That sounds lovely.
You can't imagine not stressing about every single thing ever.
Yeah.
All the time, Like, what do you do? Like, it's when I realized, like, oh, other people don't have ADHD, so what do you do with your time? Like, what are you doing with all that extra time that you have? And if you're not spending your time feeling anxious or depressed, it's like you're playing on easy mode. What do you do with all those hours not spent whiling away, wasting away, or just sort of like stressing?
We'll have to ask them.
Don't know any of them. Anyway, usually the median age of onset is 11 years old, Luke. Do you know what that means, the median?
So it's like the middle number, as opposed to like adding all the numbers up and then dividing by the number of people.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally like lining everyone up and then picking the age that is bang in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. So mean, median, mode. Mean is the average that you usually think of, the one you just mentioned, where you add everything up and then divide by the number you've got. Median, yep. Line them up, 1 in the middle. Mode is the most common value. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's median onset is 11 years old. And then the general prevalence, Luke, for under 18s as a whole is between 5.7 and 12.8%.
Okay, that's quite a bit lower than the sort of teenage average, which is like 1 in 4.
Mm-hmm.
So good news, everyone. Children are not very anxious.
Well, less anxious than teenagers.
Hey, I'm taking what I can take from this horrible anxious episode.
So, this horrible anxious episode, story of your life, I think. Can you guess which gender of the two main ones is more prevalent in?
I think it's going to be girls.
Why is that?
Because teenage girls have a real hard time.
Yeah, well, that's very true. So it's twice as high in women compared to men.
Oh, well,
Anxiety.
then the men also don't go and get diagnosed with anxiety.
Yeah.
Because they think that's not very manly.
No, men don't feel anxious. That's actually true fact. Anxiety doesn't affect men. That's just called, being a little bitch.
You think you're a man who's anxious?
Mm-hmm.
You're trans. Because men can't get anxious.
Right. Okay. Or you have LBD.
What's that?
Little bitch disease. Anyway.
To be clear, that we are joking. Men can get anxious. They just don't go to the doctor and get diagnosed with it as much as women do. And that's because of various things affecting men and their manliness. Their issues with manliness.
Yeah, if you feel anxious, that's an issue with No, I'm joking.
No, God, Corey,
It's
stop
also
it.
more common between the ages of 35 to 55, which, that's when things start getting serious in life.
That's actually surprising, though, because
Houses.
I feel like, because financially your 20s are hard.
Yeah.
In real terms, it's slightly easier on average as you get older.
But also there are fewer consequences. You probably don't have a mortgage. You probably don't have, dependents.
True.
Like you're more likely to. The sort of problems you're facing in your 20s financially are not the same as facing issues in your 30s and 40s.
Very true.
When you have family and kids and all of that sort of stuff, right? But yeah, anyway, that we don't even know if that's the case. We're speculating more than anything. What are some of the complications or comorbidities do you think with anxiety, other than depression, which we've already mentioned?
ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
autism,
Right.
schizophrenia.
Yeah. All those things will make you feel anxious. Do you think is there anything you can imagine that anxiety results in?
Oh, heart disease,
I don't have that on here, but yeah, probably. Yeah.
cancer.
Um.
Generally being ill. Your
Yeah.
body is not very good at healing when it's stressed.
Yeah.
There was a thing that's about basically like if you think you're running away from a tiger, you're not going to spend time healing your body because you're like, I might not have a body in a minute. And anxiety and like the fight and flight response and all that is just what you do when you think you're running away from a tiger. So if your body literally thinks it's always running away from a tiger, it doesn't do as much healing. So it's just across the board absolutely horrible for your body.
Yeah, it's insane how damaging stress is to your body. I mean, it's hard to sort of really consider it because we're so used to being stressed. You know, that kind of that grind set. You know, that like kind of sort of on the grind culture really makes you feel as though you should be kind of on edge at all times, like just kind of stressed, like kind of operating at peak efficiency by constantly putting yourself in difficult situations. Right?
Sigma male mindset, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, stress real bad for your body, and you know, I mean, insomnia is a very like sort of common one. I've already mentioned substance use issues, GI problems, right? Which is a big one with anxiety because one of the things that the sort of differential diagnosis for anxiety, one of the things that comes up on that is was it IBS? Yeah, because like I mean, honestly, I remember this going to school as a kid, and there'd be some days where I'm like, I'm ill, I have a stomach ache. I don't know what it is, but I have a stomach ache. It feels really bad, and I can't go into school, right? And then I go into school, and it probably gets better over the course of the day. And it took me until my 20s to realize that what I was experiencing was anxiety.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Because I feel like a good 50% of my career choices have been about avoiding that feeling I had every morning of waking up and just being like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I would choose like there's a large amounts of money I would turn down in order to just not feel every morning, because every morning before school was just I don't want to, I really don't like, and that probably was anxiety, depression-y sort of things. Just awful.
And I want to be clear, by the way, when I say it wasn't until my 20s that I realized that I was anxious before my 20s. I just didn't put two and two together and realize that when I was a younger child having like this sort of physical symptoms, that was anxiety then. I mean, I look back, I'm like, no, I was feeling anxious. I just couldn't describe it. But and that's why, you know, if we get onto the signs and symptoms, when you look at kids with anxiety, one of the things to watch out for is them not wanting to go to school, or you know, sort of, you know, like withdrawing, things like that, right? Like it's something that you might not actually immediately consider, like, oh, the kid is anxious. They just don't want to go to school. They're just pretending to be sick. No, kids can, you know, be conniving and whatnot, but also maybe listen to what they're saying. But yeah, no. If we go through some of the symptoms, do you want to give me a couple symptoms?
Ooh, elevated heart rate.
Yeah.
Worrying.
Yeah.
Being sort of sad, thinking things are not going to turn out very well in the future.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Planning, like lots of like pre-planning stuff, like planning how your day's going to go, that kind of stuff.
I don't have that in front of me, but yeah, that's something that people with anxiety probably would do to kind of like really kind of, you know what's going on. A lot of autistic people do that as well, because otherwise, you know, sort of the deviating from plans can cause anxiety. So it's kind of linked in that way there. But there's also physical symptoms, you know, pain, fatigue, shortness of breath, all of those sorts of things. And then just being, like, you know, startling easily, being sort of jumpy, difficulty with concentration. You mentioned heart palpitations. Yeah, it is there. It just comes after dizziness in my notes. Dizziness and heart palpitations. Apparently having difficulty swallowing as well. Sort of tremors, twitches, sort of thing. Like I said, sort of not just being sort of edgy in terms of like startling easily, but also irritability, sweating, lightheadedness. I said breathlessness already, but going to the toilet as well, like sort of anxious peeing. All of those, having trouble falling asleep and staying asleep, insomnia, you know, loads of symptoms, which like kind of are, I guess, intuitive almost. I feel like in an episode on anxiety, when I was looking this up, I'm like, I can't really find much that's this kind of, you know, maybe not interesting, but that's unexpected in a way, right? I feel like we're all kind of accustomed to the feelings of anxiety because most people have felt anxious at some point in their life.
Well, I guess the one out of that list that I think would feel slightly more unintuitive is like the like dry mouth. I think you mentioned, and I guess that's like, is your body shutting down saliva production because it thinks it's having to like preserve resources or like that kind of thing?
I mean, I wouldn't be able to say that because I didn't do evolution, but
Sure.
yeah, I mean, I think, you know, when you go into fight or flight, you do kind of shut down digestion. So yeah, it's probably to do with that. And yeah, I mean, adults who are like, you know, if they've got generalized anxiety disorder, when they're stressed, like, you know, about things, the things that they're usually stressed about would be sort of like job security or performance, health, finances, their kids and family, you know, their health and well-being, being on time for things, just getting stuff done in general, you know, like household tasks, life tasks, all of that sort of thing. Usually they're sort of just nervous about all of those things. And to be honest with you, you've not had a job, Luke, so this is probably not something that you've personally experienced. But like, I remember going into work like every day for the first few months and being like, today's the day they fire me. Today's it. This is the day they're going to fire me. And as soon as someone's like, I want to have a meeting with you, a one-on-one, I'm like, yep, to fire me. I'm going to be fired.
Yeah.
All the time, I'm just thinking that.
Like you said, I was a YouTuber since the age of 15, so I've luckily not had that experience, but I have had feelings like that where it's like someone saying, oh, can we talk about something? An immediate like, oh, what's the worst case scenario? What could they possibly want to talk to me about? Are they going to abandon me? Oh, no. Yeah, so I know the feeling, even though it hasn't been specifically attached to a job.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm not saying that the feeling itself is unique, but I find that the sort of going into your workplace every day, performing well, and still having the belief, like wholehearted belief, they are going to fire me.
Yeah.
Like they're ready to do it. They're just waiting to tell me, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean?
That's no way to live.
No, it's not.
That's not fair.
So quit your job.
No, that's not what I said.
That's exactly what you said. To me,
I said that to
times.
you. I'm not saying that to the masses.
Yeah, because they need to have jobs to sustain yours, Luke, don't they? What? You're just, well, if everyone were off gallivanting around making films and recording podcasts, who would be, you know, making the resources for you to make your films about? Huh?
Who'd be watching the films? Yeah.
I don't even no one needs to watch the films. That's no one needs to listen to this either. That's not important. That's the least relevant part of all of this. You know, it's the making it that's fun.
Yeah.
Everything else is someone else's problem.
Ding-a-ling-ling, is that the ad bell?
I think it is, but it's rather quiet this time.
Well, Luke, we want to keep a big old secret about this SCI GUYS merch.
Yes. Please do not tell anybody and do not purchase any of it. Otherwise, people will find out.
They might see you wearing our merch or displaying our merch and think, oh wow, what a cool person. And I'll tell you this, as a cool person myself, having people think you're a cool person can be very, very stressful.
Yeah, we can't have that. We also can't have you supporting the show to exist that you're enjoying right now.
Yeah, so absolutely under no circumstances should you go to normalcitizen.store and pick up some SCI GUYS merch. Some SCI GUYS merch like beanies and posters and t-shirts and calendars and cool stuff like that. Definitely don't go to that store and buy that.
Goodness me, that's an awful lot of stuff that I'm not going to purchase.
Absolutely, Luke. Now let's get back to the show before anyone listens to us.
God, I really hope we got away with that one.
So shall we talk, Luke, about panic attacks?
Yes, please. I had a panic attack when I was 17 about school. It was awful.
Tell us more about your panic attack.
In the middle of the night, I woke up and I was just started freaking out about everything. My brain was just spiraling and going, oh God, what am I going to do? Am I going to go to university? Am I going to go to university? Am I going to not go to university? Am I going to go and try and do more things?
You did all of those things, actually.
Yeah. Am I going to go to university? I'm going to quit school and become a YouTuber. What am I going to do? What is my life going to look like? And just freaking out and just started like shaking and screaming and like breathing really heavy and all that stuff. So wasn't very nice. I think it's happened a few times in my life, but that's the one that really stuck with me.
Your first panic attack really hits you, right? You don't. No one tells you about panic attacks until you've had one. I feel.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a big secret that everyone keeps, and then you get one, and you're like, oh, I'm dying.
Now you're in the club, though.
But yeah, no, seriously, and making light of it, but we can. Panic attacks, they're not fun. What goes on during a panic attack?
Real fast heart. I remember I once had maybe TMI, but I once had a panic attack when I was smoking weed. And
TMI, Luke. That's way TMI.
And I had this weird thing where I was observing myself having a panic attack. So I was like separate from it, and I like looked down, metaphorically and literally, and was like, oh, I'm having a panic attack. And my heart was like bang, 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 bang. And I had all these thoughts of like, oh God, I'm going to die. But like I was somehow separate from it. It was really weird.
That does sound horrible. Yeah, no, like sort of depersonalization during a panic attack.
Better than realizing during a panic attack, I think, though.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, for me, I don't know. Panic attacks for me are a lot of just like hyperventilation. Like, yeah, heart racing and like all of it, but just can't breathe. Simply cannot breathe. When I want to get out of a panic attack, I know what they say to do, Luke, is to breathe slowly and deeply. Nah. That is for losers. That's for quitters. I just hold my breath until it stops. It has never failed me.
Bad advice.
Oh no, don't take the advice.
Yeah.
Don't take the advice. But when I can't stop myself from hyperventilating, I'm like,
I know, I'll just pass out.
No, I don't pass out.
I'll try and pass out.
No, I just hold my breath, and then I'm like, then I have to take a deep breath, and then just reset my breathing.
You look at your body and you're like, you better chill out, bitch, or you're not getting any air.
Remember, I'm in charge. But yeah, no, so, panic attacks can come with anxiety, but panic disorder would be the kind of more specific one wherein you have panic attacks frequently and regularly, but panic attacks obviously quite tied to anxiety. You've said already, racing heart, sort of faintness as well, sweating, nausea, chest pain, feeling very warm, shaking, feeling like you're choking. Oh God, that one's rough. Oh God. Dizziness, numbness or pins and needles, dry mouth, feeling of dread or a fear of dying. It does feel like you're dying a little bit sometimes. Churning stomach, tingling in your fingers. An inability to stand it's not on there, but I know that's the case, and you can't, you can't stand up.
Your legs are so shaky.
Yes. Yes, and your breathing's so bad. And then a sort of disconnection from your body as well is another symptom of panic attack. So that's, you didn't need to even mention the marijuana that you illegally consumed, I assume.
I think I was in a country where it was fine, actually.
Oh, really? Really,
yeah.
were you?
I think I actually was, yeah.
Well, you find out, Luke, and you get back to us so we know whether we're dealing with a dirty, disgusting criminal or not. But anyway, panic attacks usually between 5 and 20 minutes. I don't think I've ever... Oh, maybe actually. I was going to say I don't think I've had one last that long.
20 minutes?
Time stops existing, I think. Do you know what I mean? During a panic attack, it's just all happening at once. But yeah, I mean, really, panic attacks, they're scary, but this is the most annoying part. They're fine. Like, as in, there's no like real health risk with a panic attack.
Even if you have them a lot, it's not like bad for your heart or something.
From the NHS, although panic attacks are frightening, they're not dangerous. An attack will not cause you any physical harm, and it's unlikely you'll be admitted to hospital if you have one.
Really wouldn't expect that.
It is like the poster child for chill, bruh. It's all in your head. Like,
right, but
no, I know.
If the anxiety is the reason you're having the panic attacks, the anxiety is not good for you.
No, absolutely.
Just the panic attack isolated. You're fine. You're not gonna die.
The point I'm making is that, like, annoyingly, it is just chill out.
Yeah,
and it's fine. Do you know what I mean? And like, I don't say that from a sort of trying to undermine people with anxiety. We're both people who have had anxiety in our lives, potentially, even right now. But no. So what I mean is that it's the same with the sort of when you're depressed and people say go out and exercise, it'll help, and then you do it, and you're like, oh, well, it did help, and you're like, well, it's not that easy. You can't just cure your anxiety by being like, it's fine. But it is a helpful mantra to remind yourself that it is fine. And if you're ever having a panic attack, like, it's the same for me, I think, as what's it called? Sleep paralysis at this point. A lot of people, when they get sleep paralysis, they're terrified. They feel like someone's out to get them on their chest, all of that sort of thing. When you have sleep paralysis multiple times a night for many years, it just becomes a tedious thing. And it's a lot of symptoms have become tedious things.
God, it's happening again.
I'm just like, bloody panic attack. Yeah. Oh, God. All right, well, let's just sit this one out.
It's good, though, because I suppose the risk is that you can get into a panic about your panic attack.
Exactly.
So you're having a panic attack, and you're like, I'm having a panic attack, and that's bad for me, and I'm going to die. And it's like, no, that's just the panic attack speaking. You feel like you're going to die because you're having a panic attack. You're not going to die. Don't panic.
Yeah.
And get yourself into a panicky loop where you panic attack about your panic attack.
Exactly. Like, you can break yourself out of that loop. Exactly. Yeah. By just kind of reminding yourself it's probably fine. And one of the things as well about panic attacks, wherein if you don't know you're having a panic attack, that is the most terrifying thing, right?
Yeah.
Before you know what a panic attack is and you have one, you're like, I'm simply dying. Yeah. That's not a fun thing to experience.
Yeah.
It's not fun in the best of times, but with no understanding what's going on, much worse. And when it comes to sort of diagnosis, you've had one of them questionnaires, haven't you?
The points out of 30 depression-y anxiety questionnaire.
Yeah, the one where they ask you a bunch of questions that are like, "Are you chill?" And you're like,
No.
I'm not chill at all. No. Do you
Yeah.
find things stressful? Yes, very much so. Do you find yourself worrying often? All the damn time. Yeah, that kind of thing. So that's probably something you get from the GP in the UK. If they want to. I mean, I feel like it should be more of a if they want to start the process of assessing whether you've got anxiety. But in my experience,
No, that is the assessment.
Yeah, it's do you feel stressed? Yeah, I do. Here, fill out this questionnaire. Do you feel stressed? The questionnaire asks, and you're like, yeah, I do. And it's like you've got anxiety. It's more than that, obviously. Like it is. You can't just walk in and walk. Well, you can't just walk in and walk out with a diagnosis, but you can't just walk in. Well, you can just walk in and walk out with medication as well. Well, I mean, if you feel anxious, there you go. You don't need to worry about getting diagnosed with it because it is very easy.
What you're kind of saying is you can lie about it, and they will give you medication. But if you're going there and you're not lying, the medication may well help you.
Yeah, exactly. And also, there's no point in taking anxiety medication really
No,
recreationally.
doesn't
there's
do
no
anything.
use for that. I mean, the majority of the ones that you'll get,
Yeah.
they're just not used recreationally because there are better alternatives for those similar pathways. Not okay.
Wow.
To clarify what I'm saying, I
There are
mean
much better drugs, says Corey.
no.
This
What I'm
drug's
saying,
boring.
what I'm saying is that if someone has the option to take citalopram or MDMA, you're gonna choose MDMA.
Yeah.
Right? Because MDMA only makes you want to die the day after you take it, whereas citalopram is for the full first 2 weeks. Sometimes maybe speak to your doctor. But no. So yeah, with the diagnostic criteria, if you just to quickly run through some of the DSM-5 criteria, it's excessive anxiety and worry occurring more days than not for at least 6 months, and about a number of events and activities such as work or school performance, etc. Finding it difficult to control the worry as well. Anxiety and worry are associated with 3 or more of the following 6 symptoms, with at least some symptoms present for more days than not for the past 6 months. So restlessness or feeling keyed up or on edge, easily fatigued, difficulty concentrating or mind going blank, irritability, muscle tension, sleep disturbance, or that's it. Those are the ones there. Yeah. But yeah. Also, the anxiety or the physical symptoms causing like significant distress, all the stuff we've mentioned already, in important areas of your life. Basically, if you can't function because you're feeling worried, that's anxiety in a nutshell. Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also a very key one, a very, very, very key one is that you can't explain it from a drug or another disorder.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're stressed because you're taking cocaine every day,
That's not anxiety.
it's not anxiety. That's a cocaine addiction. That's which should be worried about that.
Yeah,
but,
or not just cocaine. If you're taking a prescription medication where one of the sort of symptoms is anxiety.
sorry for a second. I thought you were gonna say, yeah, being addicted to cocaine. That's not just a cocaine addiction. I'm like, no, I think it is. Yeah, no, but you're right.
Yeah,
It
if
could
something
be-
else, if you're taking a drug that the doctor's given you that causes anxiety, they might not then just give you an anti-anxiety medication as well.
Yeah.
Because they'll be like, well, are there alternatives to that drug you're taking that don't cause anxiety? For example, there's ADHD medication that's non-stimulant, which is more close to a sort of antidepressant, but for the specific neurotransmitters involved in ADHD. I'm not a pharmacist. I'm not a psychologist. Don't listen to anything I'm saying. But it's like a selective dopamine and norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor rather than serotonin. And that's much less likely to give you anxiety, and it specifically is given to you if the normal ADHD stimulants cause anxiety for you.
Exactly, yeah. So basically, feeling stressed about lots of things and that impacting your life, but stress is not caused by another disorder or some kind of drug.
Yeah.
That's, in a nutshell, the diagnostic criteria for anxiety in the DSM-5. The ICD-11, which would be sort of, the alternative to the DSM-5, I think it's the International Classification of Diseases, which is it's a similar thing to the DSM-5, but it's not American. It's kind of European and the rest of the world, basically. But when you go on NICE's website, I think it also, NICE being kind of the UK's FDA, but not really the FDA, it's more about sort of care and keeping people healthy. They decide what the NHS do, basically, right? When it comes to drugs and treatments and things, they decide what's available and how much. It doesn't really matter, okay? Just Google what nice is. Anyway, they've also got the ICD-10 on their website as well, along with the DSM-5 criteria. But basically, it's the same thing. It's just anxiety. It's very straightforward. I don't know how you can make a whole episode out of it, but we have done. It really helps if you talk for the first 10, 15 minutes about autism instead. But yeah, essentially, it also mentions the ICD-11, which I think is a very useful sort of caveat to add, that if functioning is maintained, it's only through significant additional effort, and that's something I feel is really missed when it comes to a lot of disorders, right? Like if you're really depressed but you're just barely functioning, you won't be seen as having as severe a case as someone else, when it very well could just be you're more equipped at dealing with all of the stuff, or you're able to maintain a level of functioning, not because the experience is any easier, but because you have more capacity just through some other sort of means.
Or you've been raised to say that it's a sign of weakness.
Yeah,
and so you put it all into something else. It comes out in a different way, like alcoholism.
Yeah, but I don't think being truthful and honest is a bad thing, Luke. Like it.
No, I know
mental illness is a sign of weakness. Is it not?
Shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up.
I'm certain. I'm 100% certain. That's why I'll tell you this for a fact, Luke. I was once labeled the most mentally healthy person on the planet.
Was that opposite day?
God damn it. Oh, it's always opposite. Because when you ask someone if it's opposite day, they say, no, it isn't. And it's, I can never wrap my head around that one.
They got you.
They got me bad. Because opposite, so they got me good.
It's not opposite day now, though.
You're confusing me. I'm just going to move on. What causes generalized anxiety disorder, Luke?
We don't know.
Yeah.
We just don't know. There's a lot of stuff we don't know. It's quite
stressful,
annoying, especially mental stuff. We're not very good at it.
That's why I call it mental health, mate, because it's mental. Who knows what's going on? It's cuckoo, innit? But no, a few things that are sort of, involved in the development of generalized anxiety disorder. Same as pretty much everything there, Luke. It's genetics. There's some familial stuff going on there. If you've got a close family member who is, and not close as in you're personally close, I mean like genetically close. Just feeling I should say that. If someone in your family has anxiety, I think you're at a higher risk of having it as well. But also stressful or traumatic experiences, those will increase your risk of anxiety. Health conditions, chronic health conditions, those will also increase. You see, it's kind of like depression. Wherever you see depression, anxiety is probably cutting about there as well. You know what I mean? They're like, they're best mates. Drug or alcohol misuse, or no reason at all. Just no reason. And I'm not even joking. I'm pretty sure I took that from the NHS or the CDC or somewhere. But just they made sure to add that it could just be for no apparent reason. Just have anxiety. I
mean, that's a good thing they said that, because if you had anxiety and you were like, I have anxiety, and then they're like, do you have these specific things? And you're like, no. And they're like, then you don't. It's good that it's like, it can be caused by nothing, or we don't know what it was caused by.
Well, it's good for an anxious person, because you want to read that and be like, okay, cool, no reason at all. Cool, I fall into that. So I'm not going to be anxious about potentially having anxiety.
And gaslight yourself.
Exactly. Just a callback, by the way, to do you know how you can tell really quickly, like a litmus test for being autistic is if you try to take an autistic sort of questionnaire and the wording of the questions sort of stresses you out and makes you like you start questioning. You want more specific wording for the questions. Similar thing with anxiety. If you start worrying about whether or not you do have anxiety, you probably have anxiety. People without anxiety tend not to worry about whether they have anxiety or
like
not.
The opposite of psychopathy. If you're worried you're a psychopath, you probably aren't a psychopath.
Yeah, but see, what I do, Luke, is I worry about it to convince myself that I'm not. I'm like, oh no, I would simply love to hurt people, but I would feel so bad. Wait, hold on, does that make me a psychopath? I suppose not, because I am now worrying about this.
Performative worrying.
Yeah, to gaslight myself and others. No, I don't gaslight anyone except for the people in this room. Anyways, so anxiety, we don't know what causes it, but we have linked it to some brain chemicals or brain chemical systems, brain chemicals, neurotransmitters, that lot. You mentioned some of them earlier. So noradrenaline, serotonin, we think those might be involved. in anxiety. I mean, we're pretty sure those are involved in anxiety. That's why we give people SSRIs for anxiety sometimes. And don't know how it works, but does the trick.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes it gives you more anxiety.
Man, it's like we look back at people, 1,000 years ago or more, just doing stuff to solve diseases, to cure stuff, Like, they're leaving it to the gods or magic, and half of this stuff doesn't work, but some of it does, and they have no idea what's going on. That's the same thing. It's the same thing. So we just have more technology to make ourselves feel better about it, but we don't know.
We just have a powder instead of Zeus, but same thing going on. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, it's like we're rubbing bread mold on people. Do we know why it works? No, but thank God for penicillin, am I right? But so SSRIs can be used, and then SNRIs can also be used for anxiety. But when it comes to treatment, medication I've already mentioned, antipsychotics can sometimes be used, and a few different kinds of drugs, benzodiazepines, like diazepam, they're used as well. Basically, a lot of things just to chill you out. Just to chill you out. I think marijuana can also be used for anxiety in the UK.
A lot of people do it.
Yeah.
Colloquially? Like
recreationally.
Well, not people self-medicate with marijuana for their anxiety.
Yeah.
It's not just recreational. They're doing it all the time because they're anxious.
Yeah, so they self-medicate with it. But I think in the UK, you can get it for anxiety if you've tried if two different sort of other medications have not worked, two other classes of medications haven't worked. It's kind of like a last line, I think, for anxiety. But then marijuana can also increase anxiety. And then there's talking therapies, CBT, the classic. Hey, you know how you're feeling anxious? Stop thinking that way. Think better.
Think in a different direction.
Whenever you're feeling anxious, just remind yourself, don't do that.
Did I tell you about my little baker's story?
No.
Basically, I saw this lovely Twitter post. If anyone can find it, I want to find it, so please send it to me. It was this idea that, like, if you're lying in bed at like 4 a.m. and you're anxious and the thoughts are like rushing through your head, am I doing the right thing with my life? Did I make a mistake? All that kind of stuff. Just think about the fact that about 4 a.m. is when all the bakers go to work, and they're making lots of donuts and muffins and cakes and scones and pastries for you. And that's just really, like, it's genuinely helped me. Like, I wake up at like 4 a.m. just thinking, overthinking quite a lot. And then I try to just turn my brain to just imagine that there's like an army of bakers out there all going to work right now to make a bunch of muffins for the morning rush. I just think that's really sweet and comforting. It reminds you there's a whole society out there. I just think it's really cute.
That's genuinely a wonderful place to end this, I think. Like, that's pretty much everything we've got for this episode. There's just one thing left to do. It's a quickfire quiz.
Dun 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 dun. Anxiety edition. You've wasted your life. Everybody hates you. You are a failure. I hate you personally. You smell as well. Take a shower or don't. It doesn't matter. We're all gonna die when the sun expands anyway.
It's just psychological warfare to make sure you win. So the rules for the quickfire quiz are the same as always.
I'm really sorry.
One question. That's one question from you and the audience. Luke, the first person to answer the question after it finished asking it wins. What do they win, Luke?
I'll stop. That's what you win.
A prize for everyone. So, Luke, my question for you is, name one symptom of anxiety.
Oh, why does my brain say anxiety? Heart palpitations.
Ding, ding, ding. Well done. I mean,
immediately my brain just goes, anxiety.
I mean, anxiety is a symptom of anxiety. It's very circular, but you're right. Well
We've got
done.
this.
And you know what? Now that you've finally stopped, I think that's all from us. We'd like to thank all of our patrons with an extra special thank you to executive producers Glitch Rabbit and Rev Lunar. And thank you for watching. You can find the full references for this episode down in the description. Subscribe for new episodes every Sunday. And leave us a nice wee comment. Support the pod at patreon.com/SciGuys, or you can find and contact us at SciGuysPod on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and at SciGuys on TikTok too. Or you can send us an email at SciGuysPod@gmail.com.
That's SciGuysPod@gmail.com. SciGuysPod@gmail.com.
You can follow me at NotCorey everywhere.
You can follow me at Luke Cupforth everywhere.
Goodbye.
I'm sorry.
I'm not.